All right, so we know with step one, we were able to figure out a high time frame POI, a high time frame market structure idea. We actually have two different interest zones. We had area 1 and then area 2. Now at this point, you know what? They're separated by a very tiny amount of space here. We'll call it empty space. Usually when I have a situation like this, I generally just combine them. Like realistically, it doesn't matter to me, even if it bounces in that weight zone right there. Really, it doesn't. Because you got to think of demand as an area, right? Like this whole thing, technically, because they're so close, I'm just going to call that my demand zone. We'll just call it a POI. So let's go ahead and do that first. Let's make that little refinement. We're going to connect the dots, and there we go. So we have this interest zone, okay? Now, it's up to you if you want to draw it over all the way. I'm not a big fan of drawing on green or colored backgrounds besides white, so I'm going to just leave it there. I know it hit an area of demand. I realize that. It also hit the POC of that accumulation zone that we're looking at, that nice sell to buy with that weekly SFP, right? We know that. Great. So the next step is obviously going to be looking at the mid time frames. When I'm talking about the mid time frames, I'm generally talking about, say, between the 30-minute and the 4-hour, right? Like, you know, mid time frames, not the high time frames, just anything local, right? Very local. And quite clearly, we know that to get into a long trade, we need to have some kind of downward structure breaking bullishly, right? That's a must-have. So in saying that, well, let's go ahead and look at what we even have here, right? We're going to start from the very top here, and we'll work our way down. We'll start in the 4-hour and see what we have from downward structure. Now, I don't want this to be a mess. I realize that this is all subjective. This is just an idea that we had that it could make a higher low and a higher high, or it might come down lower and make that higher low for the higher high. So because it didn't actually happen, I'm going to wipe that for now. It's going to be in our way. I'm also going to hide that range equilibrium line from that bigger range because, again, it's in our way. We don't want things in our way. It just causes confusion, unnecessary confusion, and we don't want that. So starting from the top down, first of all, let's see what the upward structure breaks looks like, and then we'll start from the top down. So let's go like this. Let's go ahead and doodle it out very quickly. I'm not going to start from the very bottom. I'm going to start from right here. So we had a higher high. We had a higher low in the 4-hour. You had this higher high. That's not really a 4-hour high or low per se, but it could be on the 2. Let's check the 2, because I can combine 2 and 4-hour. That's no problem. So on the 2-hour, yeah, you had 2 black candles in a row here, right? That's fine. That's fine. So we can combine that. That's no issue. And then what we have here is we had a sweep of the high. This, again, this was a distribution. We're aware of that. It was a model 2. And then structure broke bearishly, right? It came down, basically straight down. Now, you might be inclined to pick this and this and this. That's up to you. For me, because it was coming down so steeply, I'm not too concerned with this as a market structure point. It just doesn't look right to me. Like, look, it looks really, really messy and tight, right? And of course, it's your own idea. If you don't want to use something, you don't have to use something. If you want to, go ahead. For me, I'm just not really sold on that, right? So I'm not going to pick that as a market structure point. Why? Another reason why is because we know it went lower ultimately. So what's the point in drawing that out just to show where structure broke temporarily, just to go back to bearish again? There's no point. We don't care about that. We're trying to pick a trade now, not then. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here, wipe that, and try it again. So we have this point. Clearly, this is the lowest point before it made another lower high and it touched again. So this is the next lower high. It's the highest point between here and here. That's the next lower low. And then we have another swing lower high over here. And then we have another swing lower low down here. So based on what we have here, from the top down structure, which we'll just double check in a second here, but it's bearish, right? There's no answer besides bearish. Clearly, it's making lower lows and lower highs. Otherwise, how would we even get down here in the first place? You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't be here unless it was doing something like this. So that's fine, because you know what? That's perfectly acceptable behavior from ETH. Now, let's start from the top down and see if it gives us the same answer. Well, yeah, it would, right? So if you were to go down, up, down, up, down. I always suggest that you do both just to make sure that you're getting the same pull, meaning that you start with the up-down structure and then make sure it co-aligns or meets with the other structure drawing, because if it doesn't, you're doing something wrong. So we're doing something right. And we're actually going to mark out these pivot points. Lower low, lower high. We'll start with the top one, I guess. Lower low, lower high, and then you had this lower low. Okay, now we can wipe that drawing. We don't need it. So quite clearly, for any kind of significant chance of coming back to this high over here, right? We need to do what? We need to break this high with a significant close on the 4-hour plus time frame. Okay, mid time frame. So that's all fun and games, but look how far away this is. Like we're talking about like 18% almost, right? Like 17.5%. So it's saying that, well, no, that's not good enough for me. I need to go down like this and draw my structure downwards to see what we have. So let's figure out what the structure from an internal standpoint looks like, and then we'll see if we can draw in some fractal structure. So first of all, I don't really have to change timeframes to draw internal out here, right? Because you got to remember, like a lot of the time when you're drawing this structure the way that I show you guys, you're going to see, eventually, you're going to notice this, where your swing structure is basically co-aligning with other time frame structure pulls. Like if we went to the daily, this is probably considered daily structure. Yeah, that would be daily market structure as well, see? But that's okay. That means you're doing something right. That's good. That's good stuff. So in saying that, we can dissect the top down leg. That's what we're going to do so we can figure out when this becomes weak. Okay, let's go ahead. So we went down, up, down to here, up to here, down to here, up to here, down, and then up, and then down again. There you go. So if we break this guy right here, we'll actually label this out, right? We'll label this out because we're still beginners and we want to label things out. 4-hour internal, lower high, break me, go to next high. It has to be close. Got to be close. That's the logic, right? And this is the swing structure, lower high. Okay, you can use different colors. You can do whatever you'd like to. So I'm actually not going to use the highlighter tool here because it's going to get really messy. What I'm going to do is the brush tool. I'm going to dab right here. I'm going to put it to the 4 pixel size. Let's try that again. Dab, 4 pixel size. And I'm going to use my magnet tool by holding in the control button. And I'm going to do this. Watch. Dab. I'm just going to keep dabbing all these highs and lows just so I can picture the internal structure better. Okay. Sometimes you may have to make some slight adjustments. If you just roughed in the market structure, that's fine, like I did. There's the highest point. There's the lowest point. This is the highest point. That's the lowest point. Highest point there. We can actually wipe that drawing now. So these are all the internal points, right? Of course, you can color code it if you'd like to. It's up to you. And this is the lowest point down here so far. We might have to move this later. That's fine. All right. So that's perfect. Now, what can we do with the structure that exists between here and here? What's that called? That's called fractal structure. We know that, right? So we're going to look at the fractal structure drawing, but we're not going to find that in the 4-hour. No way. We can try the 1 hour. Or maybe, you know what? Let's go to the 30-minute. The 30-minute looks a little bit cleaner. There we go. 30-minute looks better. Let's draw that over to there. All right. On the 30-minute time frame, we went down, and then we touched again over here. So the highest point was here. That's our lower high. And then you have a lower low. Then you have 2 up candles. Okay. So lower high, and then lower low. Got touched? I think so. Let's check. Yeah, that just touched. So that confirmed it, right? So I'm going to use a different color. We're going to use red for the fractal structure. So low, lower high, lower low. And you might want to put them next to each other if you have 2 overlapping like that, right? Purple and red, because we know it's 2 significant points there. Okay, wipe. Now, of course, yes, you can have different versions of fractal structure. Actually, we just made a mistake. We forgot 2 points. Right here and right up there. There we go. Perfect. So again, you can have different levels of fractal structure. But remember, every time that you go to a lower fractal drawing, like let's say you dissect it further and further and further, there's a lesser chance that it's going to work upon a break. Okay, so remember that. So what I mean by that is, let's say that we dissected here to here, this straight line down, right? And we draw it over here. Okay, down, up, and then down. And this point is actually this point right here. Okay, and this point is this guy up here. Okay. Now, if you were to dissect this last leg again, you're pushing your luck, is what I'm saying, right? You're pushing your luck, especially if you keep going and going with it. Like you're dissecting this leg and then dissecting the next leg and then the next leg. So don't forget that, right? The more times you do it, the less likely it'll work. Okay. So that's fine. We have our mid-time frame structural analysis. Perfect. I don't really think I would change anything in this example based on mid-time frame POIs, but we'll check. We'll check. Because we know this whole thing could be demand anyways, right? Otherwise, what I would normally do here is I would go back and I would check for any like order blocks with imbalance to see if anything's nearby this range. Like, did we just peekaboo into anything there on that low? Is that why we SFP'd the low again? Could it be accumulating here? More than likely, you have something in the zone here forming, but we'll see, right? So we can actually go back very quickly, find that demand range and see if anything stands out like a sore thumb, right? Okay, so there's an order block with imbalance, but we know we went lower than that, so it's not really helpful. And from there, if you want to see it, yeah, there might be something in that wick, but again, we don't really need that. We know this whole thing is demand. We don't want to long a single candle. That's crazy. We want to just trust the structure for what it is. So in order to do that, well, we got to go with what we have, right? All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next